A quick tutorial on how to use some of the more advanced features of Jupyter and how to custom configure some of the things that'll make your presentation look closer to what you want it to. I've shared with you a repo called Jupyter templates, and I'll try and add to this later on as the capstone project continues. But for now, there's just one sample in there called Altair Talk. So I'm going to go into there. There's three files: the lecture CSS file, the lecture notebook file, and then just a README. So I will go ahead and launch a terminal in this particular folder. I'll start my Jupyter notebook just like I normally would. It's going to open it in Safari for me, but I'm actually going to switch to Chrome just so that I can show you a couple of features of how to actually configure things fully. So here is the notebook. The first thing to do is just restart and run the entire notebook. What I'll do is I'll first go through the notebook and just show you what it looks like when it's in presentation mode. And then we'll go through some of the features of how I was able to achieve some of those cool things. So I'll go into full screen mode and I'll pop into the Jupyter session. And so immediately when we first go into Jupyter you'll notice something that's different here than in the default configuration of Rise, which is that the full screen is being used, and there's some CSS that we can use to do that. In addition, there's a couple of cool features that I'll talk about, but for now I'm going to use the comma key to get rid of these. And now I've just got a full presentation style, full screen window. So I'm going to run this cell just like I normally would, and then I'm just going to go through some of these slides. I've got an image in there, and then I've got a few points. And then what I want to kind of show you is one way is to use the scroll bar here on the right to talk about more things that you can fit on a single slide, rather than having to just always switch slides. So that's a cool it's not actually cool, it's just a small trick. So this talk is about the declarative visualization library called Altair in Python. I gave it on March 13th. And so I'll just go through a couple of features here. So one thing is when you print out data frame, you can see how this is kind of much larger than it normally is. That's also another CSS setting that you can change. So I'm using spacebar to go through the slides, and I'll obviously go through it pretty quickly. We've got an Altair chart to start with here, so it's all embedded in there, and of course you're used to the regular Altair stuff, so that's all in there. And then matplotlib, again, I'm using the scroll bar here to kind of zoom in and out. So the cool thing here is that there's an extension called a notebook extension called split cell, and that actually allows you to have two separate cells side by side. So I've got here on one cell a picture and then some text in the bottom, and then on the right of it is I've got this poll question which I can run using an iframe. So Q1 is something that I defined earlier. It's just a URL, but when I execute this, it's going to launch a Slido poll, and so this allows me to quickly go back and forth between the question that I want and then the poll on the right. So this is a neat feature that I realized too late in the course that this would be a useful thing. Okay, so that's good. And then of course we can go through, I can do this again. And again, the idea of scrolling is quite nice here. And then there's some comments here at the bottom. So this allows you to kind of talk through various parts of your presentation without having to go back and forth between slides. So I can just easily go scroll up and then scroll out. And then in a real class, I would maybe write some things here to kind of annotate as I'm going through my lesson. Okay, so then I've got also some pictures, and then the side-by-side thing here, again, the split cell lets you have a single cell on this side and then another cell on this side. So now I'll go through and I'll press the comma key again. That will bring up this display, heads-up display that actually lets me control a few things. So the first one is this pencil icon. This is quite nice as it allows me to draw on my slides. And then, of course, when you go to a different slide, it goes away. And then this one is also another nice feature of Jupyter called the Chalkboard. And so this Chalkboard lets you just have a blank screen where you can make some drawings of various things, write some equations, make some derivations that you want, and you can sort of do this live in the audience. And that's a nice feature that lets you sort of like, if there's a question in the middle of your talk, you can sort of click this black screen, draw a bunch of stuff, click the chalkboard again, and then boom, you're back into your regular presentation. And here again, we've got a side-by-side view of how to actually write these things. Okay, so we can keep going. There's various other things in here that are there, but I think that's mostly all that is different or new. You can see that I've made liberal use of the split cells, which I'll show you how to do in a second. Okay, good. So that's all I think want to show here in the slide. So let's get out of it. So the extension that allows you to do split cells like this is called split cell, and I'll show you how to add that. But once you enable that notebook extension, you just get this little button here that lets you enable the split cell for a couple of cells. That is what I wanted to say here. And then at the end, you'll notice that I have some Rise settings. So you can obviously feel free to control these as you wish, but you can set the theme here. The transitions are I've set to fade. And then the start slideshow at selected lets you go to a particular cell. And then when you click the notebook, the Rise button, it will actually start the notebook at that slide. So that's handy, that way you don't have to flick back and forth. So this is kind of an essential thing start slideshow at. Auto launch true. This is sometimes annoying, but sometimes useful when you're trying to get ready for presentations. So I'm going to just set the auto launch to be true. I'm going to save it, and then when I reload, hopefully when it'll go right into Rise mode and into slide mode as soon as I access um, the the notebook for the first time. Okay, so that's another interesting feature. Let's keep going through. So the header footer, I can actually add custom things here. So I'll just add my name here for capstone. So I'll run the cell, reload, and then because auto launch is there, so now I've got this. It will add a header to all of my slides. I actually don't really like that at all, but in case you want it for whatever reason, it's available for you. You can also customize this to kind of add, make it bigger, make it smaller, add color, things like that. So scrolling, I also had to enable that so that I can scroll through my cells. Like I showed you that a couple times, where I have kind of a sort of a commentary on what's going on, and then I can use the scroll feature to go back and forth. Enable Chalkboard, that's the cool feature I showed you, where you can draw on a black screen, slide numbers, and then there's a couple of other things like where you center it and things like that. Okay. So that is that's most of the settings here. I hope you find this useful. If you'd like to get more customization, everything's available on the Rise Read the Docs, and I'll also add the link to that in the README. Okay, good luck with your presentations. Best of luck.